Hey everybody, thank you for listening to Politics. A lot of you keep asking, how can I keep up with you? I want to know what's going on at the Capitol all the time. You can always follow me on social media at TMFTX on both Facebook and Twitter at TMFTX. Thank you for listening to Politics. It's Texas State Representative Trey Martinez Fischer, and welcome to another edition of Politex, your one-stop shop for all things political and all things Texas. We had a very interesting week this week in the Texas legislature. We've now started debating major bills and major reforms, and I don't need to remind you about the horrific storm we had in Uri that shut down half our state, froze our pipes, took away our electricity. Many of you are still angry. I'm still angry. We are dealing with $1 billion of debt in the city of San Antonio with increased costs. So this week we started talking about the reform process, and the House took a small step forward. We've addressed a series of small steps when it comes to how do we prevent this from happening again, and what kind of responsibility are we going to be putting on our agencies, and more importantly on our energy and electric companies to make sure that they're doing their part. Because remember, 10 years ago when we had a freeze similar to this, we told these oil companies, gas companies, pipelines, and electricity generators, hey, you need to do a better job weatherizing your infrastructure so that we don't have power outages. 10 years ago, nobody paid attention, said this will never happen again. This is a 100-year event. Well, guess what? It happened again, and we lost water, we lost power, and 111 people lost their lives. And so as we started debating these bills this week, there are very small steps. We still need to tackle the big obstacles, which is the roles of our appointed officials, the folks who charge excessively high prices for energy, and those gas companies that really, raise the price on natural gas. Some of it maybe by simple supply and demand, and some of it because natural gas froze in the middle of the storm, which created the scarcity that led to the increased pricing. We've yet to get to that. But in these areas of small reforms, I was happy to know that I was able to add two components to these major pieces of legislation to improve the bill. One of the measures we had dealt with how we have the Public Utility Commission, the requirements we put on them to make sure that these companies are submitting their weatherization plans. And number one, to make sure that they're submitting plans, because some didn't submit any plans at all. But now we have a law proposal that says you're going to submit a plan, and we're going to make sure that the plan is going to be a working plan. We're going to give the Public Utility Commission the ability to audit those plans to make sure that they're going to comply and they're actually going to work the next time we have a freeze. I wanted to make sure that we raise the level of play, and I elevated the discussion by bringing an amendment, which is my proposal. I brought an amendment to the bill that said, well, not only are we going to have these plans meet a certain standard, we're going to have them meet national standards. And so my amendment said that these plans that these companies have to file now to tell us that they're going to do their job to weatherize, they have to meet the standards as established by NERC, which is the North American Electric Reliability Council. And why does that matter? It matters because other states like Iowa and South Dakota, their states got pretty cold. And in fact, they got colder than Texas. They follow NERC standards, and they didn't lose any infrastructure in their states. Folks didn't lose power. People didn't lose their lives. Folks didn't lose their water because they properly regulated and winterized their infrastructure according to the standards established by NERC. So I said, you know what, we need to adopt that standard here in Texas to make sure that we're going to do it right. The second item that I was able to amend was another proposal that dealt with this emergency disaster response. It's hard for me to acknowledge that we actually have to have a state law to tell all of these agencies that when we have a horrific weather event, you all should be coordinating the disaster response. Well, we're going to make a law to make it very clear that the Railroad Commission, the Public Utility Commission, ERCOT, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, they're all going to talk to each other so we can coordinate a response and figure out what the needs are. The one piece that was missing is the response that we have at the local level, the job of our county judge, the job of our mayor, the job of our local officials that do emergency response. And so I brought my amendment to the floor and said that in the coordination taking place at the state level, we should also coordinate at the local level with our mayors and county judges and our local emergency management officials. I was pleased to see that get added to the bill. And so, you know what, we're taking some small steps, but our work has just started. can, hold us accountable, make sure that we're doing everything we need to do to make sure that this event never happens again. And then we right the tremendous wrong that occurred to our state. And so that was this week. We're going to be getting busier in the next week and the week to come. So, thank you for listening and keep sending us your ideas. We are going to have a terrific show today. I can't tell you how many times I've been stopped, whether I'm in the grocery store, jogging in my neighborhood, or just walking the halls of the Capitol, of all the people who have thanked me for sharing these homilies that I send out on Sunday, written by Father David Garcia, who is a very well-respected and very popular priest here in San Antonio, who recently retired. Well, Father David Garcia has allowed me to interview him for this podcast. So, it's fitting with Holy Week being this week, and as we celebrate Easter weekend, it's my opportunity to have a conversation with a man that I admire, my family admires, and who we celebrate our faith with. And we've been lucky enough to even have Father David baptize one of our daughters. And so you're going to hear from Father David Garcia. I'm pretty excited about that. And then, in keeping with our tradition of introducing you to a member of the legislature, I've also had a really good conversation with a rookie lawmaker who is new to the Texas House, but not new to politics. And that is San Antonio's own State Representative Liz Campos. So we're going to have a great show. Thank you for tuning in. And again, you are on Politex. Well, everybody, we are back. I'm really excited about this next guest. Everybody knows Father David Garcia. This is a statewide show, but even still, people know Father Garcia. Father David has been a lifelong friend of my family, been very involved with my children, has baptized one of my daughters. We attended Mass at one of his churches, the San Antonio Mission de Concepcion. Father, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be with you.
Well, listen, it was hard for me to get you. I know you're retired, so I hate to bother people when they're retired, but what have you been up to lately?
Well, the biggest thing about retirement that I've learned is you have to learn how to say no and say it consistently because a lot of people want you to unretire really quick. And they say, oh, you got a lot of time. Why don't you do this? Why don't you that? And I said, I retired for a purpose. So I'm actually telling people my days are full, but they're not busy. So in the sense of I'm filling my days with the things that I've kind of wanted to do for a long time. At the same time, I'm still helping, Sundays when people need help at different parishes, I'm going around the city helping out and even going outside the city a little bit to help out when people need help. But otherwise, lots of projects that I'm doing myself, and one of them is the one that you have helped to spread a lot, which I really, really appreciate, and that is this whole idea of writing homilies that began. I never kind of thought it was going to be this way, but started getting a lot of requests. I mean, I think you and many others in the government have helped us get through this COVID crisis that has been going on for more than a year. But the more I wrote these homilies, the more I realized that this was as much a spiritual crisis as a health crisis. And I wanted to be able to help people to see both ways that, yes, we have to do very certain and important things about our health. Me personally, me for my family, me for my community, me for everybody else. But then we have to look at this in a whole spiritual way because our spirits needed an uplift. And that's what I think this tried to do, blend both of them.
Well, let's talk about that. Like, so, we are just so accustomed to, getting up on a Sunday and going to the church and listen to, our liturgy and your homilies. And so then, of course, you retired, sometime in 2021 after, was it 45 years?
Actually, I retired in 2019, in July of 2019. And I was having the time of my life until COVID hit last year in March. So basically, I just about 10 days ago celebrated my 46th priestly anniversary, 46 years.
So again, you've been, the priest 46 years now, and, everyone's so used to seeing you on Sundays, and then, COVID came, and that sort of, made it difficult for a lot of people, even to today. But then you started writing these homilies And at the beginning, you just were sort of circulating it to your close friends and parishioners. And of course, over 40 years, you've made a lot of friends. And then all of a sudden, this idea just became more and more popular. And I approached you and said, Father, can I share this homily with 5,000 of my closest friends on a Sunday email? And you were gracious and said yes.
Why not?
And, you know, we get a tremendous amount of feedback on these homilies. So what inspires, you know, these writings, these homilies that you come up with?
Well, I think the important thing that I've always looked at in terms of homilies and sermons is try to connect the scripture to real life. So if you've noticed in my homilies, I almost always start with a story from the newspaper, from TV, from the internet, from something that personally happened to me or that somebody told me about, because it's the real life nitty gritty of our day-to-day, you know, living that the scripture speaks to. And that's what I've tried to connect. I've tried to say, okay, here's a story that maybe we're familiar with, maybe we all read it, maybe we heard about it. Okay, now what would today's gospel or what would today's reading say to that story, so that then we can feel some sense of hope, some sense of connection, some sense of support, and also a sense of duty. In other words, each homily is designed to not only help me understand my life better and scripture better, but each homily is designed to give me my marching orders. What do I got to do about this? It's not enough for me at the end of the homily to say, oh, how beautiful, wonderful, thank you very much, bye-bye, and then forget about it. The idea of every homily is, at the end of the homily is, what are you going to do because of what you just reflected on? What is your role? And everybody had a role in this last year of COVID. And I mean, some people maybe had bigger roles, like the medical people and obviously the civic people like yourself and others, but every single person had a role in, even if it was just wear your mask when you go to the grocery store. It was the guy who was delivering, you know, packages. It was the people who were working at HEB. It was the people who were, you know, doing the day-to-day. I mean, even people like your gardener, even people like the woman who maybe comes and cleans the house or takes care of the kids. It was the teachers. Everybody had a role, and it's because of everybody that we are where we are today, at least in San Antonio and in Texas, where it seems the numbers are a little bit better. There's no guarantee, but things are looking a lot better. And I think that is what scripture speaks to, and scripture tells us, do something about it. You can.
Oh, you know, and they're wonderful homilies. I mean, our practice at home is we read the homilies right after dinner. And the big argument at the moment is, you know, there's 4 of us. And so we we move the laptop around, and the first person reads 1 paragraph. The second person reads 2 paragraphs. The third person reads the 3rd paragraph. My kids are fighting over who's going to go 3rd and 4th because they want to read those homilies. Right. So and then we discuss it. And so now here we are. How many have you done now? And is this idea leading to bigger ideas and bigger projects for you in your retirement?
Thanks. Last week, Sunday, on the 21st, which was my 46th anniversary, I finished number 60. And that was the one in which I finished 1 full year of homilies. From the 5th Sunday of Lent of last year to the 5th Sunday of Lent this year was 1 full year. So basically, I'm looking at the possibility of publishing those into a book. I kind of tentatively have thought of a title, something like Pandemic Preaching or something like that, because this was a historical year, really, for everybody. I mean, this kind of a year has not happened in 100 years. And there's very few people alive that remember the pandemic of 1918. There are a few people, but very, very few people. So most of us, this was a new experience. And so the question is, this kind of is like a historical book as much as a spiritual book. It's a book that kind of walks us through these different moments when we were terrified last year at this time that we didn't even know what this was all about. We didn't have enough information about it, but everybody was saying, this is serious, this is dangerous, this can kill. And you know, everybody kind of was panicking, to now where we've lived with it for a year. we kind of understand it a little bit better. That doesn't mean that it's safe. It just means that we can kind of handle it better. And of course, now, thanks be to God, we have the vaccines and we have the other mitigating things that we're doing, the masking and the social distancing and those kinds of things. So I would say that what I've tried to do is kind of capture this year through the lens of the scriptures that the church gives us every Sunday. And hopefully it's a kind of a documentation of what we've gone through.
Wow, that's a great idea to have this published in a book. Like you said, preaching during the pandemic, or the palabra of the pandemic. I mean, that's fantastic. Well, I hope you follow through, and I want to I want to keep apprised as to your decisions, because it would be a good book to have. I'll tell you that. I mean, our kids have enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it as a family. And I think I told you this. I mean, when I'm exercising, I'm not very social. I mean, that's my 30 minutes alone to think and process or listen to some good music. And I mean, I had a neighbor flag me down. He was waving like this to me, and I thought maybe his house was on fire. I didn't know what was going on. And I took off my headphones and I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Man, I love those Father David homilies," and he said, "Keep sending them out." So listen, you're touching lives, that, and even in retirement. And so we're very appreciative as a family, and we're blessed to have you in our life and to have those words of inspiration. And we're thankful that you allow me to share that with 5,000 people in email. And really in this segment, we'll probably reach about 12,000 people. So we're gonna grow your fan base across the state, as they watch this video. And so listen, I know that as the pandemic numbers begin to change and policies are changing with businesses and institutions, has there been any update from the church in terms of how, masses are going to resume? I mean, this is a big week with Holy Week, and anything you can tell us?
If you remember last year, COVID was just hitting, and so everything got closed. And it was the first year in everybody's memory that we did not actually go to church for Holy Week, it was really quite traumatic, to tell you the truth, even for us priests, not to celebrate Mass in front of a congregation on Easter, the most important day of the year. That was very hard on all of us, and on us priests who lead congregations. It was very difficult. So this year, what the Archbishop announced, and he announced this just this week of Holy Week, that the churches now could fill every pew. Right now, up to now, we've been every other pew, and we've been doing the 6 feet distance, and we're doing the mask requirement. So the mask requirement is going to stay in effect inside churches, but now we can fill every pew, and we're going to go with a 3-foot distance. As more and more people are vaccinated, hopefully more and more people will feel confident to come to church. So as of Holy Week, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday, and on, we are now into this next phase, which is more people can come to church, and I hope people will consider it. It is a safe place to go. It is a wonderful place to go for hope, for comfort, for community, support, which is what church is all about. And of course, connecting ourselves with God and what God can do in our lives. And the fact that really throughout all of COVID, as difficult and dark as this year has been, we believe that somehow God was there through it all. We believe that God was there in that doctor or nurse or medical person that was, there every day giving their best to a patient, the person that held someone else's hand, the person that delivered groceries to a sick person, the food bank people, the people that contributed to all the different kinds of projects that were going on. All of that, God bless those people and everybody that did it, because that's what this is all about. When we gather for Easter, we gather that hope is alive, and it's alive in those people we saw this year, especially who reached out to each other.
Thank you for listening. If you have a suggestion for the show or an idea for a potential episode, I value your feedback. Email your suggestions to contact@TreyMartinezFischer.com. As always, thank you for listening to Politex. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're pleased to have as our next guest, State Representative Liz Campos. Liz is lots of things. Number one, she's not new to politics, and we're going to hear about that. She also is a small business owner in San Antonio, and she's been pretty connected to the community for some time. So Liz Campos, you are not new to politics and not new to the legislature. So, tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and what brought you to the Texas House.
Well, thank you, Representative and Dean Representative, for having me today. It is a real pleasure to be here. And I mean, I'm lost for words, really, because every time I talk about everything that I've accomplished, it's just, I'm just so happy to be here. And I will tell you, born and raised in San Antonio, lived on Rigsby for 51 years, purchased a house across the street from my parents. So I know my district inside and out, and it is an honor to be here to serve them to the best of my ability. And what better place than to be here in the House? I'm grateful for my experience being a former chief of staff, working in the community, and it's just an honor to be here and to be able to have such a great delegation. I mean, you have been in the House for so long, and I really admire you, everything that you do for the people, and respect you. And so great to be a part of the delegation. And as of today, I filed 54 bills.
Whoa.
And I know it's a lot, but you know what? I'm building my war chest for my next sessions, and I want the people from my district to know how important they are to me. And I didn't have that many on the agenda, but after the freeze, it just brought a lot to light. And so that's why I'm now at 54, which I wasn't at that number, but there's just a lot of need in the district.
Wow, that's impressive. 54 bills is a lot. And for our viewers, I mean, it's not just filing the bills, it's the research that goes behind it. It's the, submitting drafts and getting written proposals back, editing them, rewriting them, changing them. To get 54 bills filed, I mean, that's a tough task. So, you know what, I commend you, but I also, I want to light a candle for your staff, because that's a lot of work.
Well, I have an amazing staff, but again, because of my experience working in the legal field for like 30 years, and then being a chief of staff for a senator, and then worked in a state rep office. So I think all that has really helped me. And then my staff, I mean, I have an amazing team. And the majority of my legislation focuses on affordable housing, nursing homes, seniors. I have a real passion for seniors. I took care of my mom before she passed, and it was the most rewarding thing that I ever did in my life, and I would have continued to do it forever. It changed my life for the better, and I was able to do so much for her because of my knowledge. And so that is what encouraged me to be here today, because I want to help the seniors. Every time I saw a senior at the hospital or the doctor's office, I wanted to butt in and help them. And I did a couple of times. So they're a real passion for me. Homelessness is a real passion for me. I have placed a lot of homeless families in my district, and it was tough. It was like pulling teeth. I mean, it's hard for a homeless person to get any kind of communication, because they don't have cell phones, they don't have family. So I saw their struggles because I walked it with them, and that's why I'm here now fighting for them. And then everything else that we have going on with energy and just there's a lot of bills. The HB 6 is a big one. We have George Floyd. So there's a lot going on, and I'm just again honored to be a part of it and to work with my delegation and do the best that I can for San Antonio and Texans. And I'm a team player. I'll go above and beyond for the people.
No, well, that's great, and that's good, and we're happy to have you in delegation. And I always tell people that our delegation, we're kind of like a team. So it's always good when we can build a team and everybody work together and stick together. So look, here's the tough question for you. You filed 54 bills, and if you could only pass one of them, of the 54 that you filed, which one would it be?
Oh my gosh! So
only one. I only want one.
That's tough, because my goal is to pass more. I mean, gosh. I would like to pass one of my homeless bills. Mm-hmm. One of my homeless bills for more housing. Yes. But God, that's a tough question. One, I mean, I have so many, I've got one for domestic violence, nursing homes. I can't pick just one. Well, I will say homelessness. If I could just get one pass for the homeless, I'd be very, very happy.
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask our viewers and our listeners on the pod that that if you're interested in this, we're going to look up Representative Liz Campos's bills. We can do that on house.texas, look up her name, bills filed. And if you find one of those 54 that you think is the priority bill, either let me know or let her know directly on her email or social media. Now, Liz, this is our last question, and it's always the one that gets people thinking, because I will ask you what I've asked them. Listen, tell us one thing about yourself that we're not going to find on a bio or on a Facebook page or some, carefully scripted narrative that we do as we manage our campaign images. Tell us one thing about you that no one knows that we can't find on our own, that people will think is kind of cool or interesting or weird, or you tell us.
Well, I will tell you that I am a very caring, loving person, and I will go above and beyond for the people that I care for. I will take my shirt off my back and not think twice about it for the right thing. And I want to be there for people. And that is who I am, but I will fight for the right thing as well. So I want to be that strong Latina, that voice that you can come to, like you, because you are the voice of the House of San Antonio. Everybody knows Trey's a fighter. Trey will, he won't turn his back on you, and he'll fight for you. And so I want to be like you.
That just means I'm getting grumpy in my old age. That's all that means.
But you do it in a good way. You're fighting for Texans, and you always have. And I admire that, and I respect you, and I want to be like you.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, listen, folks, you've just heard from State Representative Liz Campos from the South Side of San Antonio. New to the House, but not new to the legislature. We're looking forward to some big things out of you, Liz. And folks, one thing I know about Liz is she's open and accessible. You call her office, you find her on social media, or you come up, and visit her in the state capitol. She's a woman of action. So Liz, if I didn't tell you before, please have a happy Easter, and I will see you on the House floor this coming Tuesday. Okay, everybody, thank you for listening. It was a fantastic show. And like I said, I always love hearing from you. Give me some ideas, some topics. If there's some things you want to hear about, please let me know. But until then, we will see you next week on Politex.